Hi everyone, my name is Theta with an 8, and we are back in business. YouTube did not keep their word to restore my videos in a timely manner after my counter notifications went unchallenged. However, the copyright strikes on a channel will eventually expire of their own accord. Unfortunately, that takes 3 months. Quite disruptive for a channel like mine that analyzes ongoing shows. Later on in the video, I will talk about what we should do about that interruption. If you are new to the channel, the short version is that my analysis of the 6th episode of The Promised Neverland got copy-striked, and a re-upload that appeared it would pass while unlisted also got copy-striked after it was pushed live. There's a whole video about what happened and why called Service Interruption, which I will link below, and it will go into more detail if you want that context. Now, if you've glanced at the runtime for this video, it will seem way too long for something as straightforward as telling you that the strikes are off and content will resume. You are correct. I have quite a bit to share with you today. I've written them up on the board here, but I'm going to amuse myself by blurring them out or blocking them to preserve the mystery. This video is basically about what I've been up to during this hiatus and what it means for the future. A rough table of contents for today goes like this. After this introductory spiel, I will talk about in brief about these past 3 months so that you'll understand at least a little bit about where I'm coming from. Then I will talk about my research into video hosting platforms and problems and my conclusions about how to proceed. That was an obvious thing for me to do, with YouTube knocking me offline for so long. Then I have a small announcement about a new platform, which some of you have already discovered. After that is what I guess is the really big announcement for this video. It's actually a 2-part announcement, but the second part will have to wait until another day, which I'll explain then. In that section, I also have a question that I would like more feedback on. This ties back to a video from the very beginning of the year. This is one of 2 questions in this video that I would really like some input for if you have the time and inclination. The part after that is yet another announcement, and it makes sense in light of everything that I will have discussed up to that point. This one is where most of my time has gone recently. Finally, the second question I'd like people to answer, which is about dealing with the interruption. It is at the end because you will need to hear everything else I've done and intend to do before trying to answer. There are new restrictions, but also new possibilities. All right, let's get started. Back in February, when I got knocked offline and created the video explaining what had happened, I was presented with some unexpected free time. At first, I tried to preserve the possibility that the strikes would get resolved quickly and we could pick up where we left off, something I'll talk more about later. I also knew I needed to look into ways to avoid this kind of problem in the future. But I figured at the very worst, I would now have more time to work on the backlog of analysis videos, which at that point was only the unfinished work on Land of the Lustrous. That is what I started doing at first. Tomorrow, I'll be pushing the episode 6 analysis live. This 1-day delay is so that I can read people's responses to this video first. I am continuing my moratorium of my own comments section for Land of the Lustrous because I am still spoiler-free, and I don't want anyone to worry about accidentally ruining the show. The YouTube community tab mixes all of your comments together, as well as alerts, so I want a chance to read and respond a little bit before the two start to mix. Now, back 3 months ago, I had a minor fantasy that if nothing else went my way, at the least I would finish all of the Land of the Lustrous videos and dump them on the channel whenever it was safe to post again. A content explosion to make up for all the time away. When you watch the episode 6 video, it will be obvious that I was still under that mindset at the time. I would love to have accomplished that, for my sake, as well as those patiently waiting for more, but over time I had a change in priorities. I've written the script for the episode 7, but I have not shot it, though I will continue to work toward that end. Instead, the other thing I mentioned, finding a way to avoid this offline problem in the future, that became my primary concern. It would be no good to make all of that Land of the Lustrous content, begin sharing it again once the strikes were off, and then get copy striked all over again. Those in charge of policing content uploads on YouTube can change over time, which is something we learned with the Made in Abyss finale. So there is no guarantee that just because it's been safe in the past, that I wouldn't immediately have the same problem. That could easily spell the end of all of this. Most of the rest of this video will be about how I actually spent my time towards solving this conundrum. But please know that these 2 Land of the Lustrous scripts and the 1 video are not all I did toward future content. The last video I put up explained the launching of an alternate YouTube channel, where I shared a Game of Thrones theory video I created in both long and short versions. I've also written most of another script for that channel about the Avengers Endgame movie, but just like with the 7th episode for Land of the Lustrous, I have not found the time to shoot it. Maybe I still will, even though it is becoming increasingly less relevant. I also wrote out a script for a video I want to make one day that is about storytelling in a more general manner. I actually have a ton of ideas I want to pursue in that vein, which was part of why the alternate channel started to make sense. It will be some time before I am ready to make that video, but it and ideas like it are things I constantly advance a little when I have the time. Eventually you will see the fruit of these efforts, but at the moment there is not a lot to show you as far as where my time has been invested. But I need to confess that I also took some time for myself. I saw some movies. I'm easing back into the gym. I played a video game for the first time in a year and a half. I thoroughly soaked up the final season of Game of Thrones. I reorganized my closet. I planted some trees. In other words, I took some time away to catch my breath. And it was nice. More importantly, it helped me look at this whole endeavor from a distance. Doing so convinced me that I had a more pressing matter than just shooting those 2 scripts I mentioned. How do I protect myself from the whims of companies like YouTube? I don't know if I found all the answers or have even chosen the best options, but I will share everything I managed to learn and decide. First things first, YouTube can be problematic. They have already burned me and are unlikely to change. Other video hosts exist with their own advantages or disadvantages. In light of this, should I stay on YouTube? Short answer, yes. Medium answer, yes, but with an effort to host the videos in multiple places, as well as expanding beyond this medium. However, the prominence of this YouTube channel remains. It is still the main platform. Now for the long answer. I am not remotely alone in my woes as a content creator for YouTube, and the problem is so widespread that even casual YouTube users understand that there is a systemic issue. Now, what usually happens when a company causes turmoil for its user base is that a competitor rises to steal away the disgruntled, often signaling a downward trend for the original company. This has not happened in the case of YouTube. Why might that be? Looking around at my options, the answer seems to be that absolutely no one else is actually doing what YouTube does. I got a lot of suggestions for other platforms to check out in response to the service interrupted video. Vimeo, Dailymotion, BitChute, Mega, and other platforms that are similar to those in some way. So let's run through them. Vimeo is a great host for a lot of reasons. Their compression is less destructive than YouTube's, and I believe also allows for a higher audio bitrate. You can change the video file itself without generating a new link, which is handy if you had a typo in your titles or something like that. On YouTube, if there is a mistake in a video, your only options are to let it stay, or completely re-upload a new video on a new page, resetting all views and comments and breaking any existing links. Additionally, there's practically no clickbait on Vimeo, nor the prevalence of attention-seeking thumbnails. The production values for the average video on Vimeo is higher quality than the average video on YouTube, and there are also no ads. Now, the reason Vimeo is not a substitute or even a competitor for YouTube is that last point. There are no ads. On YouTube, you can make a channel and upload videos and do everything necessary to create a content stream for free. And if you are even a little successful, you can turn that into revenue for yourself. On Vimeo, this is reversed. To have a Vimeo channel that is useful, you must pay for it, and there are no ads to generate revenue for you. You actually can sell downloads of your videos, but this really only makes sense for the independent filmmakers on there who are using it as a distribution platform. 99% of YouTube videos would never be paid for in this manner. Of course, this is why there is so little clickbait and low-effort content. There is no incentive in the platform itself to try to drive as much traffic as possible to your channel. You aren't necessarily trying to stand out amid all the recommended video thumbnails like you are on YouTube, nor is there any gaming the algorithm or intentionally stretching videos to the 10-minute mark so they can be stuffed with the maximum amount of ads. Vimeo is a great place for a backup channel for my kind of content, or as the focal channel for filmmakers and other artisans. It is a goal for me to back this stuff up to there. But to be useful, the Vimeo hosting I would need runs about $250 a year, so we are not going to jump straight to that. Especially because it would only be a backup channel. YouTube has it beat on one very essential point, which I'll return to at the end of this section. Next up is Dailymotion. It is the most similar of all these to YouTube itself. Creating and using an account is free, and you can sign up to share in the ad revenue that your channel generates. It also has searching and discover functionality like YouTube, though in what I think is a much cleaner presentation. I have begun the process of using Dailymotion as the backup platform for my videos, and you can find my channel there at dailymotion.com/nearlyonred. That process is nowhere near complete, however. In fact, it will take several months. The reason it will take several months is also the reason it is not a suitable replacement for YouTube. Videos uploaded to Dailymotion are limited to 1 hour in length. And you can upload no more than 2 gigabytes of video in any single day, which means you can't get around that 1 hour limit simply by splitting a video up. There are plenty of creators for whom this would make no difference, but I am not one of them. A lot of my content is over an hour anyway, but I actually hit that 2 gigabyte limit before I hit the 1 hour limit. This, even though I output in 720p instead of 1080p, and I already compress the videos to recommended standards. The videos which are 45 minutes or shorter are pretty safe, but most of the rest would have to be split up, with the separate parts uploaded on different days. That is annoying, but not the end of the world as a backup platform, but it's unusable as the main place to premiere, at least for time-sensitive content like most of my work. Can you imagine me having released the Made in Abyss finale there, and actually needing 5 days for the whole thing to be available, because only 20% or so could be uploaded each day? Not to mention trying to do that in the middle of a season I'm actually current on. Just like Vimeo though, this restriction prevents some of the nonsense that happens on YouTube, and it doesn't cause problems for everyone like it does for me. In spite of these problems, I am backing the whole channel up to Dailymotion, and this means splitting up a lot of existing videos. That is extra work that is not very high priority. And so, coupled with the enforced delay, it will be some time before that channel has the same library as this one. I will, however, be pushing the content that is new to this YouTube channel to Dailymotion immediately, even if it might take a few days for the full thing to be available. Then, at least if we have more content ID shenanigans, the newest stuff will be available elsewhere. I will always interrupt the backlog uploads for that purpose. Now, next up is BitChute, and really the whole category of BitTorrent style video hosting. The advantage here is similar to the advantage torrents have in general: decentralized distribution. Sony could not come in and try to squash my videos over a spurious copyright claim because there is no single origin they can point to and say no. Because of this, some content creators who cannot publish their works on YouTube have moved to BitChute or similar sites, which often advertise themselves as being against censorship. Torrent-style distribution is pretty hard to censor, And if you create videos that violate the terms of service for other sites, then this is a logical place to move. Moving my content to such a site would free me from the problems of corporate overreach, which sounds great, right? Well, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Digging deeper into the experiences of those who use the platform reveals the issues. They really are the same issues that all torrents have, which is that they require a certain critical mass to function. When a video is new and a lot of people are watching it and thus seeding it to others, everything works fine. Over time, though, without that level of viewership, the videos increasingly become difficult to stream or begin. It gets harder and harder to access past content after the initial rush. While there are content creators for whom this is no issue, like work focused on current events, it is a non-starter for me. A considerable amount of my viewership for each video comes after that initial rush. What's more, since I am usually looking at a multi-episode show and am releasing analyses in serial, it's important that all the parts of a work's analysis stay together. It's no good if people can watch episodes 1 and 2 and then have to skip to 5 because 3 and 4 aren't seeded well enough. That wouldn't even be something I could control on my end, which is equally untenable. Lastly, there are services like Mega or other cloud storage platforms from which people could stream or download. Usable versions of these are also paid solutions, and they definitely are superior to the torrent-style hosts as far as availability goes. Leaving aside its viability as a place to premiere, it seems like it might be a reasonable backup host, especially the low chance of having a fight over fair use. Well, once again, the length of my content is the problem. To avoid hemorrhaging cash on bandwidth, these platforms provide very generous permanent storage, but comparatively limited transfer caps. To use Mega as an example, the highest tier for which pricing is available allows for 8 terabytes of storage, which is a lot, but 16 terabytes of downloads or uploads per month. That seems like a lot, but my videos are mostly in the 2 to 3 gigabyte range. That's just 5,000 to 8,000 downloads in a month, and there might be 4 or 5 videos in that month, which means about 1,500 to 2,000 views on average would cap me out. That's not even enough for the channel right now, let alone if I were to add more content or add more viewers. And that already inadequate solution would run about $400 a year. To truly have the bandwidth and storage necessary, and to be completely outside the automated copyright bots, would require me to self-host my videos and pay for every byte of bandwidth. But it's not even as simple as that, because most of my viewership is outside the US. I can't just rent a co-location space in Texas and call it a day. The equipment and infrastructure required to have a usable speed for most access points on Earth would be a little cost prohibitive. In fact, even if I was the most popular content creator on the planet, the cost would always stay ahead of any potential to earn the revenue back. It's just way too inefficient at such a small scale. Researching the video hosting landscape gives one a lot of appreciation for what YouTube is actually doing. Even if you were only looking at the technical side of things, they stack up favorably against everyone else, what with being free to use, very few limits on size or length or bandwidth, as well as permanent storage and fast worldwide distribution. They are especially irreplaceable for the kind of content and audience my channel has featured to this point. However, the actual greatest benefit of YouTube is something no one else can compete with, and that is its reach and discoverability. For example, this very channel. All I've ever done is create content and put it up. No self-promotion, no ads, no other platform presence, and I've even isolated myself away from the communities who might look up my work after we interact. Despite this, thousands of people have found my channel, either from stumbling across it on YouTube or being referred by someone who stumbled across it on YouTube. I did zero work to drive traffic to my channel. All of my viewership is a result of YouTube's own powerful presence and its popularity as a search engine in its own right. There's a reason even content creators on other platforms will still maintain and populate an associated YouTube account. My own example is a mere pittance compared against some of the enormous success stories out there. and despite their obvious talents, most of that fame and the money that comes with it is actually due to YouTube's dominance. So that is the long way to say that yes, I'll be staying right here. I'm going to be taking more steps to minimize problems with Content ID, which I won't go into now, but premiering my scripted videos here will remain the same as it always has. But, well, we've seen the folly of relying on it as a sole platform. I have the Twitter account that I really only use to announce video releases or channel news, but even if I was an active Twitter personality, it is not a content platform. Not this kind of content, anyway. So, I'm expanding beyond the YouTube and Twitter presence, and that is what all these hidden announcements are about. The first platform and first announcement is something that some people have already found, and others of you will be able to guess just from the discussions I had in the comments section of the Service Interrupted video. It turns out, a lot of people have been treating my long-form content as though it were a podcast, either listening to the audio with the video player covered up with other windows, or just straight up downloading the audio stream to take on the go. I guess the way I organize videos into sections makes them tolerable to follow even in audio form, at least for some of these formats. So, I'm going to save you a step. There now exists Nearly On Red Podcast Edition. Well, actually it has existed since March when I lined up a media host. Here is the feed address that you can plug straight into a podcast app or feed reader, and I'll link it below as well. From now on, whenever I release an analysis video, I will also push live a podcast version of that same video. This will probably cost me some views and likes and other YouTube metrics for engagement, but I don't really care. If that's how some people would rather consume this stuff, then I want to make that happen. To make it even easier, my media host will also push those podcast releases to iTunes and Google Podcasts and Spotify. There are a lot of podcast apps and indexes out there, but a lot of them will pull from one of those services for their own listings. Every iOS device can access the iTunes version, every Android device can access the Google Podcasts version, and every PC can access the Spotify version. And of course, they can all be downloaded and taken with you. All free. Oh, and, well, while I was at it, I went ahead and created podcast versions out of most of my existing stuff, which is like 80 or so podcasts in total. This involved going back and remastering some of the earlier stuff before I knew as much about audio processing. Some of those I don't have the raw files for anymore, so the quality won't be quite as good as I would like, but it is what it is. From now on, though, I'll be able to make them at the same time as the videos, and I won't have that problem. Over time, I'm going to try to figure out a better way to make my videos more podcast-friendly as well. That will be a work in progress, and it may only show up in the podcast version of things, but I'm going to treat the podcasts as a full-fledged distribution platform just the same as my YouTube channel. For the moment, the only podcast content will be audio versions of the work on this main channel, and they have little disclaimers in them to that effect. However, this opens the door to doing podcast-specific content in the future. Let me share with you something that was almost an announcement a couple months ago. When it was clear I wasn't going to get the channel back, and so would end up sitting the spring season out, a friend approached me about a podcast he wanted to begin. While it was his show, he wanted me to be a kind of semi-permanent guest star. Unfortunately, right as we were set to begin, he had an emergency, and so it was shelved for more pressing matters. I'm unsure if he will get back to a place where this is a possibility, and if I never bring it up again, then you will know that it has not panned out. However, the planning process for that show made me realize that I would enjoy doing something in that vein. I have absolutely no specific plans right now, but creating a podcast is less demanding than a video, and so can potentially be added to the lineup with greater ease. For example, and this really is just an example, but I've said before that I would love to do the long format analyses each week as the flagship content, and then also somehow do the casual Monday format for the shows that I'm watching that are not the main focus. Now there's no way I can produce 2 videos a week in my current position, And there is no way to produce a video and a podcast right now either, but reintroducing Casual Monday as a podcast alongside the flagship content would be a more feasible goal. It's kind of an intermediary step to doing 2 videos a week. Now, like I said, I have no specific plans right now, and in a way, the Casual Monday format is poorly suited to a podcast because you cannot easily jump around to just the shows you're actually watching. But having the platform already exist and in use adds a potential way to expand. Maybe with something completely different to what I've done so far. At the very least, I could immediately shift into it if I somehow lose this channel again. Had this already existed back in February, I could have done the rest of the Promised Neverland as podcasts on the same week-to-week schedule, instead of what actually happened. While perhaps not ideal, it certainly would have been better. So, that is the podcast announcement. If that's how you like to consume my stuff, then by all means go ahead and add my feed to your favorite app or follow on those 3 platforms that I mentioned. You really don't have to come here for that stuff anymore. However, I don't control exactly when it populates to iTunes and Google and Spotify. My testing shows that it's relatively fast, but it's not as instant as pushing a YouTube video live. Additionally, for now, I won't be making podcast versions out of videos like this one, which are mostly news and so a bit fleeting in their value. But I will still announce them on Twitter. So that was the small announcement. The big announcement comes from the same thought process, a need to expand to more platforms for both protection and opportunity. This move was a frequent suggestion from commenters, as well as a couple of people my alter ego knows who are a lot more savvy about these things. Basically, we're going to try a version of all of this live streamed, with audience feedback, participation, questions, and all that jazz. And I gotta tell you, I get a wave of nerves just saying that out loud. You're all going to see just how much I benefit from the editing process. It's a lot. I am equal parts terrified and excited. Now, I'm sure most of you know that YouTube has a live streaming component to go alongside their static video hosting, but we're not going to use that. I think these past few months are enough reason to avoid putting all of our eggs into YouTube's basket. It will remain the main place for the scripted and edited content. For live streaming, we're going to go somewhere else. Somewhere that is to live content what YouTube is to static content. A place backed by one of the few giants on Google's level. I'm talking, of course, about Twitch. Twitch.tv, to be perfectly accurate. It is best known as a gaming streamer platform, and that remains the bulk of its content and its draw. It originated from Justin.tv, a Lifecaster site turned into a live streaming platform, with several categories such as sports, and news and tech, and music and radio, and so on. Gaming was just one of those categories, but eventually became the dominant and successful one. So much so that it was spun into its own thing, Twitch.tv, and just 3 years after that, Justin TV itself shut down. 3 weeks after that, Twitch was acquired by Amazon, and all the resources that come with such a merger. Now, I am not a gamer or game streamer, so why am I interested in Twitch? Aside from it not being YouTube, of course. Well, in an amusing twist, the success of the gaming-focused Twitch.tv has raised the visibility and viability of other live streaming endeavors, channels that would have fallen into the other categories on the now defunct Justin.tv. It is far easier to get someone already on Twitch and used to its interface to watch a non-gaming stream there, right? Might as well capitalize on the existing audience, right? That is the same rationale that has YouTube selling movie rentals and music subscriptions on this platform, as well as their own live streaming and integrating YouTube gaming into the main site. Twitch is no different, and has increasingly made efforts to provide space and visibility to non-gaming live stream content. In fact, the just chatting category of streamers is now consistently one of the top categories for active viewership. Beyond that are categories for music and performing arts, ASMR, art creation, food and drink, talk shows and podcasts, and so on. Twitch has also broadcast things like a marathon of Bob Ross, or Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, And there are also sports and news organizations streaming their content, such as the NBA or the Washington Post. This is all relatively recent, and I think illustrates a desire of Twitch and Amazon to expand the reach of the non-gaming content. It's still a fledgling little corner of the internet, and so it feels to me like a good moment to throw my hat into the ring. Now, I know you are all on YouTube watching this, probably comfortable with the YouTube ecosystem, and know what to expect from the service, at least until they yank videos offline. I can understand some resistance to traveling beyond these familiar confines, especially when YouTube has their own live streaming toolset. Not being entirely dependent on YouTube is a good enough reason for me to try this elsewhere, but it also creates an opportunity to do something different. The content here will still be the same things we've done, and so if you have no interest in the live stuff, or no ability to catch something live, then nothing here will change. I probably will cross-post some of the live stuff at first, so that people are aware and can get a sense of it on their own time, but the Twitch content can otherwise exist completely separate from this channel, which means I can mix up what I am doing should I so choose. While I'm sure some of you will be interested in both channels, there may eventually exist two populations of viewers who largely stick with the format and platform that they prefer. It's exciting to me that I don't have to choose between trying new stuff or keeping this channel true to its core identity. I can do both, and the distinct platforms having their own style of content prevents it from being confusing. I don't risk introducing tonal dissonance into the channel. Now, this doesn't mean that I am planning to intentionally make the two drastically different. I imagine there will be a lot of overlap. Let me give an example of a way I thought about using this one day. I'm not in a position to do this yet, but imagine the following process for each new installment of the long-form analysis. A new episode premieres here on YouTube channel just as it always does, and it also simultaneously releases across those podcast platforms that we talked about earlier. 10 minutes later, though, the Twitch channel goes live and begins broadcasting the very same video, except with the chat stream of those watching superimposed beside it on the screen. It becomes a shared experience for those who want it. Then, after the new analysis ends, I am there live to basically moderate a discussion of my video and the episode it focused on. It's similar to the commenting on the YouTube videos that happens now, except instead of me spending 5 or 6 hours trying to respond to most of the individual comments, we'll all get to spend an hour or two taking part in a group discussion. I think that's a lot better than 50 separate conversations that only get just so far. But those who like to take time to make longer and more exhaustive comments on the YouTube video will still be able to. Now, the reason I can't do this immediately is that it requires releasing those long format videos at a predetermined day and time, and I do not have enough control over my schedule to do that just yet. Live content requires that your audience knows when to tune in, as well as broadcasting during a time that they are even able to tune in. This is one of the big disadvantages of live streaming compared to the static content here on YouTube. Live content is never going to be able to be as well edited and well executed and as tight as scripted content. The trade-off is the immediacy and interactivity you gain, something that you absolutely don't have with a video like this one. However, if you cannot be there for the live part of it, well, watching a live broadcast later is somewhat lacking. It's inferior to the same content in a more compact and edited form. That means live content needs to be predictable. It needs a set schedule in advance, and it needs to accommodate time slots that are favorable for its intended audience. As I mentioned earlier, I have an international audience. The US does comprise the largest individual segment of my audience, and Canada is second largest, and that is not really too surprising. Yet even added together, they do not make up even half my viewership. Germany is actually the next down, followed by the UK, and then Brazil. If you didn't know, Brazil has a pretty huge anime community, and I think it's also home to the largest population of Japanese outside of Japan. Anyway, the point is that a lot of you do not live in the same time zones that I do, and as a whole, we are spread over a lot of the world. there is probably no perfect time for the live content to accommodate everyone. Because of this, I'm going to ask a favor. If you are interested in seeing what we do on the Twitch platform, then I'd like you to go to my channel over there at twitch.tv/nearlyonred. Go ahead and follow the channel now, but do so during a time that you would be available to tune in. I've tested it out, and I get notifications and emails for follows that show the timestamp, and this will allow me to get a sense of what time works best for the largest number of people. For a lot of you, that is probably right now, during the time you have to watch YouTube videos, so by all means go now or after the video ends. This is basically how we are going to vote for the ideal time. I think this is better than running a poll, as only people who are interested enough to go over there and follow the channel will have their vote count. We are not going live right away, so you have some time to go do so a better part of the day if you so wish, or if you are watching this video several days from now. It will be a few weeks before it matters. Why is that? Well, that leads us to the second part of this announcement. I have an inaugural live event that I've been planning and working on for several weeks, but I can't announce it yet. Not because it has to remain a mystery, but because I'm not yet sure I can actually pull it off. You see, live content is a different beast than this edited stuff and requires other equipment and processes. This, what I'm doing right now, is pretty easy by comparison. I just have to turn on the camera, turn on the microphone, and stick to the script. The hard work of thinking what to say was done before now, and the hard work of polishing the presentation will happen after. For live content, it all happens at the same time. Quite apart from the mental strain, there are technical matters to overcome in order to process and clean up audio, bring multiple audio and video sources together in a coherent way, and manage any graphical overlays that aid the presentation. Live audio especially is something I am still working out, as I have very slowly learned about the audio side of things as this channel has gone along. I am really excited about what I hope to pull off, but I don't want to tease something I cannot actually deliver. I will go ahead and tell you when it will happen, if I can make it happen. Basically, the end of this month, the final week of June. That is the last week of this current anime season, when many shows will be having their finales. What I have in mind will span 10 days. The last 10 days of June before the new season begins, so June 22nd through June 30th. What time things happen each day will depend on the time of day chosen by all of those who go follow the Twitch channel. I've already taken that week off of work, and so I'm pretty flexible on times, at least for this first event. With any luck, in a week or so, or maybe later this week, I will make another video to actually announce what we're doing, and I am hoping I can go ahead and set the times at that point as well. So, if you are at all interested, please go vote by following during your preferred time. Now, that is the big two-part announcement for this video. Alongside it, I have a question for you, the first of two questions I would really like some feedback toward. Here is some context for this question. If you remember, way back in January, I made a State of Show video explaining that one of my goals for the year was to find a better community solution. I hope you can see where the Twitch channel is already a step towards solving this, and that's certainly part of my motivation to expand there. But like we just talked about, the pitfall of live content is that there is no perfect time slot for everyone. Twitch is not enough by itself. Now, because of that State of Show video, one of you made a subreddit dedicated to this channel's content. It is at reddit.com/r/nearlyonred. Unfortunately, just a month or so after that happened is when I was forced offline, so that was really poor timing for that subreddit's sake. But a subreddit was one of the more popular ideas for a community solution. Full disclosure, I am not involved in running that subreddit, but I was granted mod status in case it becomes useful for organizing things in the future. Right now, I am not a participant on that forum. There is a post over there explaining as much, and you can go read the whole thing if you want, but the short version is that my community moratorium is still ongoing until I finish the backlog. Reddit is probably one of the biggest non-anime communities that is still full of anime spoilers. I don't log in to my Nearly On Red Reddit account, and my alter ego's account uses RES to hide all of the anime-related subreddits. I successfully stayed spoiler-free on Made in Abyss all the way to the end, and I am still managing to stay spoiler-free on Land of the Lustrous. I hope to continue that, despite what it costs me. Now, like I said, a subreddit was one of the more popular solutions put forward in January, and the other prevailing suggestion was a Discord server. I know tons of these exist already for other AniTuber channels. Just like Twitch, Discord has a lot of its initial and primary adoption from the gamer realm. Both of those platforms favor immediacy and real-time interaction, while something like a subreddit can be a little more asynchronous. Subreddits or other forums can accommodate longer discussions and multiple branching exchanges, something that's difficult to pull off in a chat box, which is flat and favors brevity. Some conversations are more suited to one space over the other. Even though this difference exists and there is no perfect solution, they are still superior to YouTube for discussion. YouTube is pretty one-directional. It's more of a performer-spectator relationship than a shared conversation. Twitch manages to walk the line between these, as it still has a clear delineation between performer and audience, but with the audience able to do much more to be involved in the performance. However, it's still dependent to a large degree on the performer being present. Thus, I feel like expanding onto Twitch might be a natural time to introduce a Discord server as well. I am not resolved to this, so here is that first question. Do you think that's a good idea? And more importantly, what kind of niche should such a Discord server carve out? I've done a ton of research on this along with everything else, and I have some ideas of ways to expand it beyond just a scrolling version of the comment section, but such a platform would be primarily for you guys, so I'd love to hear what you would actually be interested in. Other than managing the admin side, I would retreat to being just another part of the audience for any discussion. That has a lot of appeal for me, even though I would have limited time to participate. In that vein, I have some thoughts on potential direction that I'll go ahead and share. I know a lot of you who are regular viewers are here because you like in-depth analysis of this kind of content. I also know that the signal-to-noise ratio for more thorough discussions in larger anime communities can be fairly weak. There's nothing wrong with fan celebration and humor and reactions and surface-level chatter. I like it too. I miss it. There's a time and a place for it, but I know that trying to find, begin, and maintain long, detailed conversations in that space is often frustrating. I imagine if you're the kind of person who goes in for hour-long analyses of single episodes, presumably you would like conversation with other people who go in for such things, right? The nature of my work self-selects a different audience than the general anime community. In fact, take a look at my demographics. Quite different from the data I can gather from the biggest fan sites. Having young adults be the vast majority isn't shocking or anything, but there are like 15 times as many over 35 as there are 17 and under. While my channel is too small to be a community unto itself or anything, I imagine there are other creators and voices who similarly want a more accommodating place to talk about this stuff in this way. I know some of you have your own channels and blogs and little corners of the internet where you too hold forth. I realize it takes a certain level of arrogance to suggest this, but would it be a worthwhile goal to try to foster a space for these kinds of discussions, whether or not it has anything to do with my channel? I mean, I don't care. It's never been about me. Some of you are probably a bigger deal than my channel anyway, so I know this is presumptuous. But there are a lot of cool ways you can segment a Discord channel, and so maybe this is a good time to bring this up? Like, I remember during the Darling and the Franxx run, there was always a ton of discussion, and we had a big influx of new people. This was largely due to it being a popular original, as we were all free to speculate and theorize and interpret wildly. That period stands out as one of my favorite times during this channel's existence, though I think it nearly killed me at times. Anyway, somewhere in all that, I had a viewer refer to the group of people who contributed to discussions each week as the anime-adjacent community. I'm sorry I can't seem to find the person or the exact context, but this stuck out in my mind at the time. I felt like I understood just what they meant. and filed it away as something to work toward in the future. It doesn't have to be something I do, or have to be an idea incorporated into a Discord, or anything like that. Maybe it already exists. But if it doesn't, I feel like you guys would make a pretty good starting seed toward that idea. YouTube comments in general are famously toxic and inappropriate and all around awful, yet a stroll through my channel will find the opposite. Insightful and thoughtful comments abound, and almost without exception, commenters are supportive and pleasant and interested in the analysis itself. I think the tone set by such a group would result in a constructive and useful space even as more people joined in. I have to imagine you know and follow other like-minded content creators, or are ones yourself, and the circle of people interested in a place like this is way bigger than my tiny corner of the internet. Now, that is just the kernel of an idea, and maybe it's a bad one. I just don't know what I did to end up with such a great group of folks, and it seems selfish to want to keep you to myself and only make a space for my own content. I have a certain idea of how to analyze and celebrate fiction, and I know I'm not alone, and I wish I knew how to foster a larger space for discussions of that kind. It's way, way beyond what a single person like me could cover. Anyway, that is really me just kind of spitballing with you. I'm very interested in your collective thoughts on Discord or anything similar, and what shape it should take. This honestly might be a good thing to hash out on that subreddit. And it really can be just tangentially related to my own content. My opinion just really isn't that important. Okay, so that was a lot of new stuff. For the moment, I'm still just making YouTube videos and converting the audio into podcast form, but before long there will also be live content, there may also be podcast originals, and I even have the alt channel which will get the occasional update. Plus, there's the possibility of a Discord server and any other community building endeavors that may jump off from there. YouTube alone is not sufficient to keep this stuff organized. In fact, I already have more content than can be properly navigated due to doing some of these shows out of order. Sorry. Thus, the last announcement is also the thing that I have worked on the most, though that's probably due to my own incompetence. I present to you nearlyonred.com. I've actually been sitting on the name for years, but with the unexpected interruption and all these new additions, this seems like the right time to bring it live. It is not finished at all, despite the time that I've put in. It's been a long time since I've tried anything involving websites, and certainly not since being responsive to mobile devices was a thing. I can tell from analytics that about 40% of you watch my stuff through your phone, and so making a site that still works on that platform has been something I have struggled to accommodate. I don't really use the internet on my phone, so there was much guesswork on my part. I also am working on a more unified aesthetic for the site, and I plan to one day replace all of my video thumbnails with ones in sync with that design. Neither is ready yet, though, and so for the moment the website is fairly uninteresting, though I hope it is at least functional. Some sections are still being filled out, and the aforementioned delay with Dailymotion uploads means that practically none of those links work yet. It is disappointingly unfinished. I fell victim to Hofstadter's law. It always takes longer than you expect, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law. I'll keep working on it though. I also have a short link that for now redirects to the main site. Rather than nearlyonred.com, you can go to nearly.red, just to make it a little easier. The main purpose of the site is an organizational tool. I've filled it with links to all of my existing content, and have created several ways to sort those links. You can go straight to a series page, or all the content from one season, or just by platform. There are embedded versions so that you can work your way through a series right there on the site if you wish, or there are full content pages where you can find anything. This includes a text-only full content page for those with data or speed restrictions. Going through all this work to get the links and other information was a bit of a trip down memory lane. I kind of forgot how much I liked some of my work on Hanibado and most of the work on Rayview Starlight. It's a shame they weren't more popular, though I think Rayview Starlight got some word-of-mouth buzz in the season afterwards. I still regularly get comments on my last 2 videos in that series, at least. Anyway, as to the rest of the site, the front page will constantly be updated to have the most recent 3 creations embedded, so there is no need to check every platform. Likewise, there is a page which is just a text-only link to the last 10 things I've put out. I'm also going to use it as a way to share news and track upcoming events, something that will become more important as I begin doing live shows. This site is built on a WordPress platform because I basically needed all the help I could get. But for the moment, my only intent with the blog functionality is to create a log of news and announcements. However, it does create a blog space should I ever want to make that kind of content. I've also installed some very basic calendar functionality, which is primarily to share upcoming live events, the content releases, and when certain changes go live, or I will be offline for some reason. Right now, the front page will thus show the last few news announcements alongside the next few scheduled events. I think you can add any event to a Google Calendar or iCal through those links also. There's also an About page where I talk about some basic purpose behind what I do, the Theta persona, channel symbols, and some other miscellaneous information that I've shared here and there. It's probably too much information, but I'm still going to keep adding more to it over time. There is also a credits page. Here I've tried to link to every bit of music I've used, all the books or websites that I've referenced, and some of the tools I use to help me create all this stuff. Full disclosure time. Some of the links on that page are affiliate links. The website and podcast hosting incur new and ongoing costs. However, if you look at the front page, you can see I have grayed out all the potential options for supporting the channel. I made a promise that I would not monetize this YouTube channel or start a Patreon or similar until I finished the backlog. I maintain that promise. I do not want to be supported directly like that while I still have not lived up to my end of the deal. I hate even talking about it. However, affiliate links to things I was going to be linking to anyway seemed like the least obtrusive way to help sustain these new costs, since it doesn't cost anything to use them. I'm not going to put ads in the traditional sense on this website. This is not a money-making venture, and I basically hate advertising. I recognize its importance and its place, but to me, the less the better. I have no desire to promote anything unless I specifically chose and use it, and I think it's appropriate to share. I will be going back and adding links in past YouTube videos that lead to the works I've referenced in those videos, such as the mini books, but again, it's only things I think are worth sharing. For now, it is only Amazon links, and only in certain countries: the US, Canada, UK, Germany, France, Spain, and Italy. So just the EU and North America. I can't seem to get Brazil to work. That may or may not get solved in the future. I'm not leaving out other countries on purpose, it's just not entirely up to me. I would be grateful if some of you from outside the US would try those links on the credits page, like the books, and see if it actually directs you to the correct Amazon page. I know I've frustrated some of you by continuing to refuse support. Even when I refuse, you crazies sent me a box of goodies, or you send me things through email, or you urge me to create a Patreon, and so on. I really am appreciative of this, and basically gobsmacked that you do so. But it's always going to be a subject I don't like to talk about. This is a personal weakness, and nothing that any of you have done wrong. Please do not think you have ever put me out. These few affiliate links are thus my first small steps to relax this refusal. When we go live with Twitch, you will have another opportunity. One of the very clever things Twitch does with their platform is to gate features behind what they call achievements for your channel. Just like gaming achievements, there are certain perks and tools that can only be accessed by checking off accomplishments. And one of these metrics involves bringing money into both the platform and your own pocket. Thus, if you are like me and just want to expand the things you can offer your audience, you still must pursue this avenue of support. They have got me by the short hairs on this one. Similarly, the two-way nature of Twitch means that financial support from viewers toward the channel host is a very normal and very regular thing. So much so that not having a donate button in your dashboard area will mark you as an amateur. Mine is there, but it's not active, because I don't want to give you any ideas about supporting a live channel that doesn't even really exist yet. But when I'm actually producing content over there, I will relent. I'm trying to make sure you get something for it, though. I'm working on what that will be exactly. Once that channel grows more, I will actually unlock a way that you can support it just by watching. That's a whole different tangent, but basically you can watch ads for a virtual currency that you can then gift to any streamer on the platform. Likewise, Amazon Prime subscribers already have a built-in subscription to a Twitch streamer of their choice each month. I like these because, just like the affiliate links, this is a way to support someone without spending a single extra penny of your own, nor are you being forced to watch ads against your will. Anyway, the website will evolve over time, but will be a useful spot to keep all this information together in one place. Once I sort out things like rules and loyalty rewards for Twitch, or we make a decision about a Discord or something else, the site gives me a place to keep it all straight and accessible to everyone. It will be somewhere I can share news without having to make a video like this one every single time, and it gives me a calendar to explain what I am planning and what kind of content is coming up in the near future. I still have to finish filling out the season and series pages, and I haven't performed a complete link audit or anything like that. I guess yell at me if something seems broken. And don't judge me too harshly for the aesthetics just yet. I'm not an artist, but I like being able to do things myself, so I'll do my best to get there one day. Okay, that is pretty much the end of the announcements. There is one more tiny bit of news that I didn't even put up here, but it's relevant to this final section. In an incredibly ironic twist, during this time of being offline because of those copyright strikes, my channel was finally admitted to the YouTube Partner Program. I can now run ads and monetize this content. I'm not going to, like I already said, I have to keep my end of things. Instead, the whole reason I went ahead and started the process was in hopes that it would make things like the copy strike situation easier to deal with, or at least faster to deal with. This may be just a coincidence, but 24 hours after I was admitted to the Partner Program, they finally upheld my counter notifications and restored the 2 videos that Sony took down, which began this whole ordeal. So, if you didn't see my tweet announcing as much, my analysis of the Promised Neverland Episode 6 is back online. 3 months too late, but at least I am finally vindicated. That leads to the second question I want to ask you, the last part of this video. What should we do about the Promised Neverland? Back in February when this happened, I at first didn't watch the episodes after I got knocked offline. On the off chance that YouTube responded during the time frame that they themselves laid out, I wanted to preserve the possibility that I could catch up and still do the week-to-week thing to finish the season out. And initially, I really couldn't stomach watching them and not being able to talk about them. It gave me a sick feeling. Once it was clear I would never get my channel back in time to cover it before the show is over, I went ahead and watched the rest. This too was on the off chance I could at least get my channel back soon enough to do some kind of retrospective while it was timely and the new season wasn't yet in full swing. That didn't pan out either, but it does mean that it's now impossible for me to do the other half of the series in the same style. I know it happens, and that changes how I would analyze it. So I want your opinions on how to handle this interruption. I confess that I don't want to do 6 more full-blown analyses on it at some distant point in the future. From the very beginning of my channel, I have been behind. I started Made in Abyss and Land of the Lustrous several weeks into their seasons, and they each interfere with the other. Then I put them both on hold to see if I even could do this week to week when Darling in the Franxx rolled around. Thus, every day since I began over a year and a half ago, I have had this unfinished burden hanging over me, and I am really reluctant to add more to that pile. If that's what people want the most, then okay, but I will tell you that it's a low priority, and I'm not going to put anything else on hold for its sake. I'm agreeable to doing it in another format over time, such as the casual style or the single subject style, or even do a very thorough retrospective of the whole series, or a character study of the main trio or something. Or we can go through the whole series on the live show an episode at a time, which would be fairly loose in structure, but highly interactive. That would have to come at a later time when I can do live stuff more regularly, I think, but it's an option that I don't think is too undue of a burden. I am still pretty upset that it turned out this way. I was really enjoying the series. A lot of the things we talked about held up pretty well, or turned out how we guessed, and it was a great piece to study for tension building and using point of view as technique. I definitely don't want to leave it off forever, but I cannot turn back the clock and do it the way I would have preferred. So, I'm open to suggestions. So that is the end of the announcements and questions. I'm once again so sorry for this long, enforced hiatus. I'm sorry I've done nothing but deliver these update videos for the last 3 things on this channel. At least tomorrow there will be new Land of the Lustrous content. In a week-ish, I'll let you know if we're doing the live event, and what it is if so. I've already taken that time off work. Unfortunately, my alter ego is one of those Americans who doesn't get paid vacation, so taking time off means working more in the weeks around it to compensate. The equipment needed to do things live means still more work, so I have pulled more hours ever since it was clear I couldn't do anything this season. That has prevented the creation of other content that I could have delivered in the meantime. This extra time at work will continue throughout the summer, so that will impact what we do next season as well. We'll talk more about that later. For now, I am just so glad to be back. I really love doing this. I hope you are even 1/10 as excited as I am about all this potential new stuff. So, thanks for everything, you guys.